So I've decided to talk about myself on this task of the impact of change and the grieving cycle. That is because I've gone through change. It might not be seen as that big of a change by many people, but it was fundamental change in my life. So the change I'm talking about is the fact that on September 19th, 2018, I quit smoking. Um, and yeah, it was a substantial change for me in my life and for many, because statistics say that those who are heavy smokers can experience all kinds of physical pains as well as psychological ones when they try to quit smoking. And at first, reading all of these stories of people having pain in their legs and headaches and feeling depressed, I thought those people were overreacting and that they were kind of weak, to be quite honest. But 3 weeks into me quitting, I found myself experiencing all of that, which was insanely terrible. Um, and so during those 3 weeks, I was wondering and wondering why I even started smoking so heavily in the first place. I think that was a good reason for me, or a good way for me to feel better, um, and to keep not smoking, because the easy way out of all of these pains was just to light a cigarette again, but I didn't want to do that. So I thought, and I think one of the reasons I started smoking so heavily 2 years ago, which was back in 2018, was I think in my senior years I was dealing with so much anxiety and stress. Um, I didn't really know what to do with my life after high school. Everyone, society pressures you into figuring out what you want to do by that time already. Apart from that, I was having a lot of problems inside. I was worrying about everything in life. I was insecure, all of these stuff. In addition to that, my dad, one of the people I love and admire most in the world, was having all of these health problems, which, looking back on it now, all of it was done in 2 months, 3 months. But in that time, it really freaked me out. I think the fact all of these things, the uncertainty about what to do after high school, about my dad's health, really made me feel terrible. And I think cigarettes having that reputation that they calm your nerves whenever you are feeling stressed. I don't know, maybe that subconsciously made me smoke more. That is what I think. And I mean, if you smoke more, your addiction gets fed more and more and more, and so you get hooked entirely. Um, and then um, I started thinking about what was the reason that I went on smoking for so long. Because to be quite honest, the last 2, 3 months that I really smoked, I didn't really like most of the cigarettes I smoked. I mean, there were about 5 or 6 that I really depended on a day, but not more, not 20. But yeah, I think the biggest reason I really continued to smoke was, I think, my figure. During my teens, I had struggled with food and, yeah, food a bit. I think with the desire to stay thin and pretty. And I think I haven't had those problems for years. But I mean, 2 years later, I realized that the fear of me gaining the average 5 to 7 kilograms every quarter uh, gains was perhaps one of the biggest underlying reasons that I still chose to smoke those things. Um, and actually, after me 3 weeks into me quitting, I was lying in bed crying my eyeballs out, and for the first time in years, I was worrying about my figure once again. I was worrying about gaining those 7 kilograms, but I was worrying about all of these other things too. And then a few days after that, I wasn't even feeling anything. To be quite fair, I was feeling depressed. And apart to that, I was feeling physically sick to the point that I even got my blood tested. Whenever I would walk a flight of stairs, I would be exhausted, absolutely exhausted, which is insane for a 20-year-old girl. So I was actually worried, and again, worried inside, because it wasn't only this physical problems, but I was feeling so, so terrible inside, like this brick inside my head or something. My head was so heavy. Um, that I really thought I was getting depressed and maybe nearing the verge of a burnout, which obviously I didn't, but I did feel very, very terrible a few days. But then at one point, I met this friend of mine who had quit a month before I did, and we were talking, and then she told me that she experienced the exact same things as me, and that she actually called her GP, and that he told her that non-smokers actually go through a grieving period. When I think of it now, it makes complete sense, because these are the things that calm you down whenever you feel terrible. This is the thing you think about before breakfast. I usually don't even eat breakfast and would have a cigarette for breakfast. So it's the first thing I do in the day. And once you don't do that, something that has become such a big part of your lifestyle, you really feel like a friend of you had died, and that is how I felt. The moments that I needed to relax and just unwind with a glass of wine, some music, and that cigarette, I couldn't have that cigarette anymore, and it seemed like the most important thing in the world. And that is why some doctors say that people who want to quit actually need to put a few months aside to really go through that grieving period of quitting with smoking, which it seems quite strange, but it makes complete sense once you go through it yourself. But now, 2 months later, I feel fine. I have not gained 7 kilograms. I think it's been about 2.3 kilograms. So all of that stress I had about that is gone. I've regained my energy. I don't feel tired anymore. I can walk as many stairs as I want without getting tired. And that whole psychological pains I had, I guess, are gone. And those were perhaps even worse than the physical pains. I mean, it didn't last for months, which it does many smokers. Some people even feel depressed for years and years. For me, it only lasted about 2, 3, 4 weeks. But still, it was the weirdest period in my life. I felt terrible, terrible. But as fast as it happened and came upon me, as that fast it actually went away and disappeared. So yeah, that is the grieving period experience I went through. I'm happy it's over, or at least I hope it's over. I sometimes do miss the cigarettes though. Last week was very stressful with the deadlines for school, and I missed the cigarettes before going to bed. But I didn't succumb to the temptation, and I think that after almost 2 months, and after experiencing all of these terrible things, that I will not succumb to the temptation. So thank you for listening to my experiences and the impacts big change has had on my life, and how I dealt with that grieving period.